Alright, so we're going to look at equivalent fractions, but before we do that, let's write these decimals as fractions. The first one we can do very easily, but let's use a calculator to make sure we do it correctly. It is 1.75. I'll press enter to save it as an answer, and then I'll press math and fraction to turn it into a fraction. That should become 7/4. So let's see how to do that. Well, this is 1 whole 7/10 and 5/100. So this is 175 hundredths. So that's 175 over 100. And the question is now, how do we get to 7/4? Alright. Now, we all know that 4/8 of a pizza pie is the same thing as eating half of a pizza pie. So the question is, how do we go from one fraction to an equivalent fraction? That would be to multiply or divide the numerator and denominator by the same value. So in this case, what goes into 175 and 100 evenly? 25 appears to. Alright, so we're going to divide them both by 25. Alright, so I'm just going to write that up here as a reminder, but I normally wouldn't write that. 25 goes into them evenly. 25 goes into 175 7 times, and it goes into 100 4 times. And we can go back, so by dividing both sides by 25, we can get to 7/4, which is an equivalent fraction, because these two values are equal. They're both equal to 1.75. We could go this way, turn 7/4 into 175 over 100 by multiplying by 25. And we can multiply and divide the top or bottom of a fraction by the same number for any number. Alright, but this particular value has a special name. It's called simplest form. So what is a fraction in simplest form? A fraction in simplest form is when the numerator and denominator contain no common factors, meaning there's no number we can divide out of both of these evenly at this point. The only number that goes into here is 1, and 1 isn't going to do anything. If we continually divide these by 1, they'll stay the same. So this one's in simplest form. Alright, let's take a look at 2.45, repeating. So first, we're going to type that into the calculator. We need to enter 4/5 several times so that the calculator realizes it's a repeating decimal. The more the better. I think that's enough. Press enter. And math and fraction. And that should be 27/11. Let's figure out how to get that to be there. 27/11. Well, I'm going to erase this for now, for space. Alright, we said we can refer to this as x, or 1x. And in this case, to move the decimal point over 2 times would be to make that 100x, which is going to be equal to 245.45 repeating. Alright, so now these 4 5s are lined up and we'll cancel out when we subtract. So we're going to subtract these two things from one another. So 100x's minus 1x is 99x. Okay? 245 minus 2 is 243. The 0.45s that go on forever, no matter how many there are, will equal 0. So to solve this very simple equation, we just divide both sides by 99. And we get x is equal to 243 over 99. And now how do we get from here to here? Well, if we look at the 99 and the 11, we can get from 99 to 11 by dividing by 9. So we're going to divide the top by 9 and the bottom by 9. 99 divided by 9 is 11. And what is 243 divided by 9? Is 27. So that's how we get this as our simplified fraction. Alright, so let's take a look at a couple more things. Alright, so we're going to write 5 different equivalent fractions such that the numerator and denominator of both are integers. I left out the word are here, I apologize. Are integers, meaning positive and negative whole numbers. Alright, so we can divide both of these by 10, and that'll give us negative 5 over 10. We can multiply so that was to divide by 10. We could now multiply by, I don't know, negative 3. And that'll give us 15 over negative 30. All of these fractions are equivalent. Let's multiply them both by 6. Alright, what's 15 times 6? I don't know. 15 times 6 is 90. Negative 30 times 6 is negative 180. Alright, so let's see about finding the simplest form of this fraction. And that would be to think what number goes into 90 and 180 evenly. I believe 90 goes into both of them evenly. 90 goes in there. Let's divide them both by 90. 90 goes in here, or negative 90, either one would work. 90 goes in there once, and it goes into negative 180 negative 2 times. So this would be the simplest form. That's also the same thing as negative 1 over 2. That's also the same thing as negative 1 over 2. Alright, so let's take a look at the next one. Alright, so we're going to divide both of these by 5. Seems like a sensible thing to do. Divide them both by 5, and we'll get 5 goes in here once, here 0 times, so 10. 5 goes in here once, leaving 4 over. 5 goes into 48 times, so it should be 18. We can then multiply them both by 3, and that'll be 30 over, what's 18 times 3? Well, that's 30 and 24, so that's 54. Can then divide both of them by, what do I want to divide them by? Why not 6? 6 goes into 30 5 times, and 6 goes into 54 9 times. This is actually in simplest form. 5 and 9 have no common factors. To get a couple more, we can multiply the top by, I don't know, 8. That's 40. Bottom by 8. So multiplying by 8, we get 72. That's enough. I don't think we need another one. It's all the same. Let's multiply them all by 10 times 10. We get 400 over 720. All right. Let's take a look at a couple more examples. All right. Write the following fraction such that the denominator will be 100. This is interesting. We're going to try and get a specific denominator, which means, what would I multiply 12 by to get 100? Well, I can find that in 2 ways. Well, I know I want my fraction to be over 100. But I don't know what I want the numerator to be. So this is equivalent to this for a given number, which we're going to find out now. This is known as a proportion. It's an equation such that two fractions are equal to one another. And one of the ways to solve them is using cross multiplication. Soon we're going to look at why cross multiplication works. For now, we're just going to know it's something we can do. So we're going to purposely figure out what this number should be. So cross multiplying means to multiply across. So the negative 8 times the 100 is negative 800. 12 times x is 12x. And just like when we were writing the infinite decimals, we're going to divide both sides by 12. And we get x is equal to, x is equal to what? What's negative 800? divided by 12. It's negative 66.6666. All right, so this fraction is really negative 66.6 repeating over 100. All right, so we can use a proportion to find a specific value. We also could have decided that 100 divided by 12 is equal to 8.3, meaning that 8.3 times 12 gets to 100. So if we multiply negative 8 by 8.3, so negative 8 times 8.333333333 should be equal to negative 66.6. So we could have also gone that way. All right, so let's do the same thing with the numerator. We're going to try and create a specific numerator, and that'll be 50. But the denominator is what we don't know. So we're going to purposely try and find out what the denominator is. So we're going to cross multiply. 13 times x is 13x. Negative 60 times 50 should be negative 3,000, but just in case, that's 50 times negative 60 is negative 3,000. Now we're going to divide both sides by 13. Because if 13x is negative 3,000, then 1x will be equal to 13 negative 230.7692308. Alright, so that's really what this denominator should be. So this is really 50 over 230, well, negative 230.7692708. This approximately. Alright, so that would be the denominator that this would have, such that this numerator was 50. Alright, and proportions are used for a lot of things. All fractions are ratios, and a proportion, again, is just two ratios that are equal to one another. It's a comparison of two objects, and this is usually the comparison of an entire thing versus part of it. So let's take a look at that using a word problem. And use 5 eggs to make 8 batches of cookies. So these are the two objects we're comparing here. We're comparing eggs and batches. Okay. So we're going to set up a proportion. 5 eggs makes 8 batches. But because these things are obviously proportional, meaning if I increase the number of eggs I should be able to make more batches, we can write a proportion. Alright, so I want to have 60 batches of cookies, but I don't know how many eggs I need. I can determine that using a proportion. So let's cross multiply. That's 8x is equal to 60 times 5 is 300, which means x is equal to 300 divided by 8, or 37.5. Alright, so in this case, in order to make 60 batches, we need 37.5 eggs, or at least 38 eggs. Let's take a look at another proportion question. John answered 10 out of 25 questions incorrectly on his first algebra test. What percentage did he get correct? So we're looking for correct. So it's correct based on the total. We know he got 10 wrong, so it means he got 15 correct out of 25. What percentage is that? Well, percentage is just when we have our denominators 100, and we don't know what our numerator is. So let's cross multiply. 25x is equal to 1500, which means x must be equal to, what's 1500 divided by 25? 60. So he got 60 points, 60 out of 100. All right.